The 1 minute that decided the Milan derby. Inter were seconds away from taking the lead. Mkhitaryan finds himself in front of Maignan. He shoots and Maignan stays on his feet and saves it. 60 seconds later, Milan score. And in a game where almost nothing was happening, that single minute decided the Derby Della Madonnina. Hello everyone, ciao ragazzi, welcome back to the podcast Tactics Imperivm, as always powered by Serie A Spotlight, and today we are breaking down the Milan Derby, the Derby Della Madonnina, a match that for long stretches felt completely locked. Two teams, Milan and Inter, that seemed more concerned about not losing control than about attacking. But games like this, as you know, are often decided by very small moments, and in this case, that moment arrives right after Mkhitaryan's missed chance, when Milan produced one of their few truly sharp attacking moves of the entire match at the San Siro. So, in this episode, we will look at three particular things. First, the sequence that led to Milan's goal. Second, why Inter struggled both psychologically and tactically, especially after conceding. And the last point is why Milan's defensive structure made it almost impossible for Inter to respond. Because the scoreline might suggest a narrow win, but tactically this derby tells a much bigger story. Until that moment, until that Mkhitaryan chance and eventually Estupinian's goal, the game was defined by caution. Both teams seemed determined to make sure as little as possible happened in this match. So Inter had a lot to lose, not just in terms of the league table, but also in terms of reputation, especially considering their inconsistent record against big teams this season. On the other hand, Milan seemed comfortable with the nature of the game. Their coach, Massimiliano Allegri, has often shown a preference for control and defensive stability rather than the chaos itself. And when both teams approach a match like this, the game inevitably becomes about moments. The question now becomes simple: who will make the first decisive mistake? And in this case, it was Inter. Milan's goal came from one of the few truly fluid attacking moves they produced throughout the whole 90 minutes. The first key moment comes from Fofana. He leaves the ball out wide and immediately plays a first time pass to Leao, which Bastoni Tekanji maybe didn't expect, and maybe also were surprised by the speed of that decision. That quick pass creates the space for Leao to return the ball and complete the combination and complete the wall pass. Then comes the second moment, and perhaps more impressive, a really piece of quality. Fofana plays a beautiful left-footed through ball for Estupinian. The left back makes a perfectly run time behind Luis Enrique, and open brackets here, a few moments before, Max Allegri was telling Estupinian to cut in front of Luis Enrique, much like Cambiaso had done for Juventus a few weeks ago when he scored at the Giuseppe Meazza as well. Then, back to the match. Once Estupinian runs behind Luis Enrique, suddenly a huge corridor opens up in the middle of the San Siro pitch. And in a match where creativity was extremely rare, Milan found it twice in the same move. Now, Estupinian scores. Milan fans are delighted, but the goal didn't just change the scoreline. It changed also the emotional balance of the match. Until that point, the teams looked evenly matched. Then, after the goal, Milan suddenly looked bigger and Inter started to wobble. And this isn't the first time we have seen this from Inter this season, and I have spoken about this also in previous episodes when I spoke about the Nerazzurri. A moment of adversity arrives and the team seems to lose clarity. Much like boxing, first the punch that stuns you, then the punch that can knock you down. But in this case, Milan didn't have quite a knockout punch. Still, during the final 15 minutes of the first half, I believe they could have easily doubled their lead. Now, Inter's difficulties weren't really just emotional. I think they were also tactical. The team looked surprisingly passive without the ball. For example, on Milan's goal, Tomori is allowed to carry the ball near midfield with almost no pressure. No one steps out from the midfield to close him down. And when you leave the ball uncovered against players who can attack space, obviously you are inviting danger. And then if the ball reaches someone like Modric in those conditions, it becomes even more dangerous. But the bigger issue was Inter's counter-pressing as well. They were losing the ball badly because they were attacking badly. The team often emptied the central area to play the vertical passes. But when the attack broke down, there was no structure to win the ball back. Because, first, the distances were too big. The defenders rarely stepped forward, meaning the defensive line was much deeper than it should have been. And the midfield was obviously struggling to recover, because now the team was long. Now, we can say that, for example, Mkhitaryan is approaching his 37 years old, Barella looks physically exhausted, Zielinski also struggles to recover defensively. So a midfield that once dominated Europe with its energy now looks far less capable of protecting the team, and that becomes an issue for Inter. Now, in the second half, Milan made a very clear choice, defending deep. They just set it just in front of their own penalty area, and I think almost comfortably. Because from Inter's point of view, Inter pushed forward, but their attacking structure looked extremely limited. The center of the pitch was empty, the strikers were isolated, there were almost no rotation between players, and the only solution became the crossing game. The problem was that these crosses arrived with no real advantage. Neither the player delivering their cross nor the attacker in the box had the upper hand. And I think Milan deserves significant credit. They managed to protect both the wings and the center simultaneously. Inside the box, Conny de Winter, I think he delivered an outstanding defensive performance. He constantly used subtle physical contact, the small pushes, the grabbing shares, leaning into attackers. And those are the kind of defensive tricks that experienced centre backs use to stop forwards attacking crosses with momentum. In front of the defense, Milan's midfield also played a crucial role. They didn't drop too deep, but instead positioned themselves to block diagonal passes Inter were trying to play into the strikers. In this case, they were blocking the half spaces more often than not. And obviously they were removing the one attacking pattern Inter were relying on. Now, what this derby means. With 10 matches left in the season, a 7-point gap is still significant. But this derby might still represent a turning point. Because now Milan look like a team gaining confidence and structure, while on the other hand, Inter keep asking themselves the same questions. Because matches like this require qualities that this group might no longer fully possess. Technically, tactically, physically, and emotionally. And that's why this defeat feels familiar for Inter, and potentially very important for the future of both clubs. Thank you everyone for singing out with me during this podcast, and hopefully we'll meet soon in the next episodes as we are now in the running of the Serie A Scudetto race, but also in the running for the European spots and also in the relegation battle. Until then, alla prossima!